Welcome once again to AudioVerse Listening Library, where every word awakens the power within. In our journey through Think and Grow Rich, we explored desire as the starting point of all achievement. But some ideas are too powerful to understand in a single glance. This special bonus chapter revisits that same concept, desire, from a deeper angle, through the lens of modern psychology, neuroscience, and timeless philosophy. It's a reflection, a chance to see the same truth from another side, to feel the spark of desire not just as ambition, but as the living pulse that shapes thought into destiny. So take a breath, quiet the noise of the world, and let's dive once more into the flame that begins it all, the burning desire within. To understand it in a better way, I divided it in sections, and first section is the birth of the fire. When I first read Napoleon Hill's words, I understood that desire was not a luxury of the restless. It is the seed of every creation that has ever existed. No cathedral was built, no song ever written, no discovery ever made without the fever of longing moving through a human soul. Desire is energy with direction. But most people mistake it for fantasy. They wish, they hope, they drift. A wish waits for permission. A burning desire demands a path. Hill called it definiteness of purpose. Modern psychology calls it goal specificity. Neuroscience calls it target-driven activation of the prefrontal cortex. But in truth, it is the same sacred motion, the mind sculpting the unseen into the seen. When I truly desire something, my body begins to rearrange itself around that thought. My perception filters the world differently. Opportunities that were invisible yesterday appear like lanterns lit along the road. This is not magic. It is the brain's reticular activating system, tuning attention to whatever matches our chosen frequency of intent. So Hill was right. The moment you define a goal so clearly that you can taste it, smell it, feel it, you begin the neurological process of creation. The universe does not suddenly conspire in your favor. You begin to conspire with reality itself. Section 2. The 6 Steps Reimagined. Hill's 6 Steps to Riches may sound old-fashioned, but they are psychological blueprints hidden in plain sight. Let me re-speak them in the language of modern mind science. Number 1. Fix in your mind the exact outcome you desire. In neuroscience, this is called mental encoding. The more vivid the goal image, the stronger the synaptic pattern that represents it. Number 2. Determine what you will give in return. This activates fairness circuits. The mind commits more deeply when it perceives effort as an offering, not a gamble. Number 3. Establish a definite date of achievement. Time-bounded goals trigger dopamine release by promising measurable progress. Number 4. Create a precise plan and act immediately. Immediate action links intent with behavior, bridging prefrontal planning and basal ganglia execution loops. Number 5. Write your statement clearly and concisely. The act of writing externalizes thought, reducing cognitive load and crystallizing ambiguity into structure. Number 6. Read it aloud morning and night. Repetition forms myelination, the neural insulation that makes a thought flow effortlessly. These are not rituals of superstition. They are rituals of neuroplasticity. Desire becomes memory. Memory becomes habit. Habit becomes fate. Here we finish our 2 sections. Now let's move on to next with AudioVerse Listening Library, so stay tuned. Section 3. The Psychology of Longing. Psychologists once believed that desire was dangerous, that pure rational control raised a noble life. But the new science of motivation tells a different story. Without desire, the mind starves. Motivation lives in 2 currents. Intrinsic desire, the joy of mastery, curiosity, purpose. Extrinsic desire, the pull of reward, recognition, security. Hill's burning desire, aligns these two by asking, what do you truly want and why? When purpose and reward merge, the heart and mind move as one. Yet here lies the paradox. The flame that builds can also burn. Unchecked, desire becomes obsession. Expectation hardens into suffering. So wisdom is not to extinguish the flame, but to learn its temperature, to hold it close enough to warm your path, not consume your peace. Section 4. The neuroscience of the fire. Every goal begins as an electrical whisper between neurons. When you imagine success vividly, not as a fantasy, but as lived experience, the dopamine network lights up the same way it would during real achievement. The brain cannot fully distinguish imagined victory from physical one. That is why visualization works. It pre-teaches your nervous system what success feels like. Over time, this rehearsal builds neural efficiency. Desire, repeated, becomes circuitry. And the moment that circuitry reaches a threshold of stability, the mind starts to bias every choice toward fulfillment. You think it's intuition. It's actually your neural compass turning toward the coordinates you've been feeding it daily. But desire must be paired with rest and reflection. A fatigued brain cannot sustain the energy of creation. This is why many great innovators worked in cycles. Bursts of obsession followed by silence, walking, dreaming. In those pauses, the subconscious integrates and reorganizes, revealing insights that effort alone cannot reach. Section 5. A philosophical gaze. Desire has been both praised and feared since time began. The Stoics warned that desire binds us to fate's cruelty. The Buddhists saw craving as the root of suffering, and yet, even the mystics who renounced the world did so out of a desire for freedom. The truth is not that desire is evil. It is that desire, without awareness, blinds. But when illuminated by consciousness, it becomes devotion. I believe Hill's burning desire can be understood as devotional intent, not greed for gold, but reverence for possibility. It is the prayer of the mind that says, "Let me become what I am capable of be." Section 6. Real-world alchemy. Let me tell you two living metaphors. A young architect once wrote on a small scrap of paper, "I will design spaces that make people feel alive." She read that line every morning before leaving her apartment. 10 years later, her building stood across continents. She told me once, "The paper didn't change my fate. Reading it changed my identity." Another, a man who lost everything in midlife, began writing a single line in a worn notebook. "I am rebuilding from wisdom, not from fear." Within months, he found himself teaching resilience workshops to others who had fallen. He had become the very thing he needed. That is the true meaning of desire, not chasing what glitters, but allowing the longing itself to sculpt your evolution. Section 7. The craft of desire. Practical integration. So how do we translate this sacred longing into practice? Desire without design fades. To anchor it, I follow a rhythm, not of mere planning, but of ritual alignment. Each morning, before the noise of the world seeps in, I write a single statement, my intent clear and specific. Not just what I seek, but why I seek it. This why is the heartbeat beneath the words. It fuels resilience when logic falters. Then I breathe into the image of that desire. I see it not as future, but as presence, already unfolding, already living in me. My voice speaks it aloud. My body feels the reality of it. This daily declaration isn't a superstition. It is neuroconditioning. It retrains the subconscious to act in harmony with the conscious aim. By night, before sleep carries me into the dreamscape, I repeat it again, softly, slowly, because the subconscious listens most deeply at the threshold of sleep. There, the words sink into the fertile soil of imagination. And imagination, as Hill reminds us later, is the workshop of the mind. To desire rightly is to plant your seed in both the daylight of action and the moonlight of belief. Section 8. The Inner Alchemy of Exchange. Hill's second principle, determine what you will give in return, is not a bargain with destiny. It is a declaration of readiness. Modern psychology calls this commitment bias. Once we state what we'll invest, time, skill, energy, we align behavior to preserve our self-integrity. But spiritually, it's deeper. It is the recognition that energy must circulate. No seed can grow in soil it never enriches. So I ask myself, what am I willing to give so my dream can breathe? When we offer something of ourselves, time, patience, humility, service, the desire becomes sacred labor, not mere ambition. Then the pursuit itself becomes fulfilling, not just the outcome. And something subtle happens here. What began as desire for possession evolves into desire for expression. We stop chasing and start creating. Section 9. Desire, failure, and transmutation. Every true desire is tested. Hill wrote, every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. Modern neuroscience supports this. Failure activates the anterior cingulate cortex, the region that detects errors and triggers adaptation. So the sting of defeat is not punishment, it's feedback. The brain rewires through trial and error, and desire is the current that keeps us trying again. Think of Thomas Edison, whose relentless experiments were driven not by frustration, but by fascination. Each failure was information, each setback a refinement of the inner map. To desire deeply is to accept this rhythm of creation, expansion, contraction, correction, growth. Without resistance, desire matures into mastery. This is what alchemists meant by transmutation, turning raw longing into refined intention through the fire of experience. Desire is the furnace, discipline is the crucible, and wisdom is the gold. The subtle law of attraction in action. Most people imagine the law of attraction as a mystical magnet that pulls riches from thin air. But Napoleon Hill describes something subtler, a law of mental focus. When the mind holds a single purpose with faith, it begins to filter reality in favor of that goal. In modern neuroscience, this is mirrored in the reticular activating system, RAS, the brain's internal radar. It tunes your awareness to what matters most. When you decide you want a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere. When you decide you build wealth or mastery, your RAS starts spotlighting the books, people, and opportunities that align with that belief. Philosophically, Hill's message is timeless. The universe doesn't hand out miracles, it responds to directed consciousness. Thought becomes the seed, emotion is the water, and persistent action is the sunlight. Without all three, nothing grows. Real-world example, Thomas Edison. His belief wasn't mere optimism, it was disciplined imagination. He failed more than 1,000 times before perfecting the light bulb. Yet each failure refined his internal model of success. Faith and focus created a feedback loop, the very pattern Hill urges readers to cultivate. AudioVerse Listening Library, where every word awakens the power within, concluded that this idea isn't mystical hype, it's cognitive conditioning. The mind rehearses success until the body follows. Entrepreneurs visualize deals before they happen. Athletes see the finish line before running. The subconscious, once trained, works tirelessly to make imagination a lived experience. Section 10. The Bridge Between Thought and Reality. Every chapter in Think and Grow Rich is really about one bridge, from thought to form. Desire provides direction, faith provides fuel, and action builds the path, plank by plank. Hill reminds us that belief without action is wishful thinking, and action without belief is blind labor. When both unite, they create a rhythm of manifestation. Modern psychology supports this. Beliefs influence behavior through a loop called cognitive behavioral feedback. You act according to what you believe, and your results reinforce those beliefs. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, either uplifting or limiting. That's why the first chapter matters so deeply. It plants the belief that your desires are valid and achievable. Once that belief takes root, the rest of the book teaches you how to nurture it into tangible success. To bring this into daily life, Hill might tell you, start by writing your desire as if it's already real. Feel its emotional texture. Speak it aloud every morning. The repetition doesn't just convince your mind, it reprograms your identity. You begin to act, decide, and attract in harmony with that image. The mystical dimension of desire. There's a moment when every dreamer crosses an invisible threshold. The goal that once felt external suddenly feels internal, as though it's not you pursuing the vision, but the vision pursuing you. That's when desire shifts from ego to essence. It no longer says, I want this to prove myself, but rather, this must be done through me, because it belongs to the unfolding of life. This is the mystical union between will and purpose. It is what spiritual psychology calls self-transcendence. The stage where personal goals align with something larger. When Hill spoke of a burning desire, perhaps he wasn't urging us to crave wealth, but to awaken the creative fire that moves all existence forward. The wealth, the success, the recognition. They're reflections of that fire, not its purpose. Faith, as Napoleon Hill describes it, is more than belief. It's an inner vibration that commands the subconscious to act in harmony with your desire. But belief alone cannot sustain momentum forever. It needs constant renewal. And that renewal happens through autosuggestion, the deliberate repetition of thought that feeds faith from the roots upward. In modern psychology, this process mirrors neural reinforcement. Each time you affirm a goal or visualize success, the brain lays another strand of myelin around that pathway, strengthening it. Over time, faith stops being a fragile hope. It becomes a conditioned certainty. So as Chapter 2 closes, imagine your faith as a living flame. The next chapter will hand you the tools, words, affirmations, and mental dialogue to keep that flame alive through the storms of doubt. Close your eyes, breathe gently. Ask yourself, what do I truly desire, and how much faith you have for that desire? Let the first answer rise, then the second beneath it, and the third beneath them both. You will find, at the core, not greed, not vanity, but the desire to live fully, to offer something only you can. That is your richest treasure. In our next reflection, we'll uncover the voice within that never sleeps, the power of autosuggestion. Until then, keep your desire burning, not as a fire that consumes, but as a light that guides. Today's bonus chapter was not just a revisit, it was a reminder that the secret of creation lies in desire that refuses to fade. If this reflection helped reignite your inner drive, remember to share it with someone who's seeking the same spark. You've been listening to AudioVerse Listening Library, where every word awakens the power within. Until next time, keep your desire alive and your faith unshakable.